Welcome into another episode of the Fat Guy Podcast. I am the Fat Guy. Most people just call me Brad. I'm a guy that lost 125 pounds on a ketogenic diet. And I'm estimating that I've helped somewhere in the neighborhood of between 50 and 100 people get on track and lose weight, reverse their biomarkers of type 2 diabetes. Had several people do that. I had a lot of people reverse a lot of health conditions. I'm not a doctor, not a medical professional. You shouldn't take anything I say in this podcast as medical advice specific for you, or weight loss, or dietary or exercise advice specifically for you. Anything you hear in this podcast is simply my opinions and my personal experiences, and you shouldn't construe it as anything other than that. Instead, I love sharing my story. I love sharing as much information as I can. And today's episode is particularly interesting because we're talking about, look, sugar's a problem, and what we're learning now, sugar's been the problem. Ever since the 70s when they got sugar designated as a food with the federal government instead of a drug, which is what it actually is. It's a highly addictive killer drug. It kills you from the inside out. It causes fatty liver disease as bad as being an alcoholic. It causes heart disease. It causes strokes. It causes cancer. I mean, all these things. And it was quite a coup for the sugar industry to get sugar, labeled as not only labeled as a food, but labeled GRS, which is their an acronym for generally recognized as safe. But make no mistake about it, sugar is processed exactly like cocaine. Starts from a plant. They take the addictive part of the plant and they cull it down and until it goes from being a part of a plant until it's a crystal that's, 100 times more powerful than it is in its raw form. It's just addictive. It's addictive and anyway. So that's what I'm getting on to today's show. I'd like to invite you to do a few things. One is to share this podcast. That helps me. Two, I would love for you to support what we do. And be a patron of the show. I would like to challenge anybody that listened to this podcast that I've helped lose weight. If only just those people. And then you might be saying, well, why should I be paying for a podcast that's free? Well, you're not paying. What you're doing is saying, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the effort that you've put into what you do. I appreciate the passion that you have for it. And you've helped me in some way. And I'd just like to say thanks. Become a patron. It's really easy. $5, You can buy me a couple of Quest bars. What are Quest bars? Like $2.50 at Publix? You buy me a couple of Quest bars a month. That'd be fantastic. I'd love you for that. And so all you got to do is head on over to ketoanimal.com. That'll take you to the Patreon page, and you can see the options there. That'd be fantastic. And the thing they do is sign up to follow us on the social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, of course. Fat Guy Podcast is a username across all of those sites. And lastly, I'd like to tell you about a new podcast that I'm doing. If you follow me on social media, you've probably seen me posting about it, but actually I'm doing a second podcast now. It's more of a daily driver kind of thing. It's not long and involved and detailed like this podcast is. It's around 5-minute segments every day where you experience my real-life ketogenic weight loss process in real time. I'll tell you what's going on with me, what I'm trying to achieve, did I succeed or fail, what my goals are. Because a lot of people have no idea what it's like to be on a daily grind to lose weight, to be on a daily routine, to be following a specific lifestyle, or, what's it like? Well, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's frustrating. In my particular case, I'm struggling to get back on track after probably just a long bout of grief and even depression. I suffered a little bit after my mother passed, and then I got kind of better for a while. Then I got down a little bit, I'd say 2 or 3 weeks. Then I got better for a while, but this last bout was long. It lasted months. It was bad, and so we're trying to get back on track from being off the rails from that, because when you're in a state of depression and you lay in bed all the time, and the only time you get out of bed is to go grab a donut and eat it, it's not good. And so, look, I lost 125 pounds. I gained some of it back. I'm not lying about it. I like to be straightforward. I think this is real. This is real life. For somebody that's been overweight their whole life like me, to get your life back on track and it be permanent, there will be ups and downs. There will be forwards and backwards. You want the forwards to be more than the backwards, but the backwards is going to happen. And I was listening to somebody who's 10 years into their weight loss journey, and It's another podcast. I don't want to get into it here, but I highly respect them. And they said it was around year 5. Year 5 of after not just trying different diets, but finally figuring out what to do, which is what I feel like I found out when I found keto. When I found out what caused obesity, which is sugar, when I found out that's what causes it, and it's in everything you buy in the store except real food. They're not, thankfully, so far, they're not cramming steaks full of sugar, and they're not cramming ground beef full of sugar. They're not cramming spinach or broccoli, in the produce section, or asparagus full of sugar yet. It's probably coming, though. Eventually, we'll probably have to just grow our own food, sadly. But everything else that's produced in there, they just cram it full of sugar. That's how they make it taste good. They suck all the fiber out, and they suck all the taste out of it, and they pump it back full of sugar to make it taste good. And we're all sugar addicts, and we're addicted, and we can't get off of it. Nevertheless, this person, you get back to what I was saying, this person is like, you know what, I feel like it's a good 5 years of knowing what to do and to continue and being on the path to do it before you ever arrive. And, I found keto coming up on 2 years ago. I've been on my weight loss journey since 13, which is 5 years, but it started out with taking some kind of product for almost a year. Then I dabbled around in the veganism for a year and a half, which went from raw veganism. Then I transitioned to just whole food. It was cooked, but it was whole food. Then I had some issues where we were off the wagon due to an injury, which caused depression again. But primarily it was just injury. I couldn't move. I was in the recliner all the time, trying to get over that injury, which took months and months and months. It took a long time for me to even know what it was. Thought I was dying for a while. And gained all the weight that I'd lost back. Had to start over from scratch. Got back on track with that. Had another setback. Then found keto. Life-changing. It wasn't just that I found keto. It was that I finally found out why I'd been overweight my whole life. And why everybody else was. I found, if you haven't watched this, it's a presentation by Dr. Robert Lustig, Lustig. Go find it on YouTube. It's called Sugar, the Poison Pill, I think is what it's called. If you just Google Dr. Robert Lustig, sugar, poison, you'll get it. It's about an hour and a half presentation. That was so eye-opening to me. I mean, he works with kids, obese kids, and what he found was remarkable. And he's like, he's like, oh crap, it's the sugar. Nevertheless, it's about 5 years, and so I figured that I probably have 2-3 years ago before this. It's just me, that I just eat right. And I just do right, and I don't have setbacks anymore, and this just is how I live. And I look forward to it. In the meantime, the struggle is real. The struggle is real for everybody, which is the subject of today's podcast. I found this article, and it was quite shocking to me, and it's about the military. Now, before I start talking about it, please don't misconstrue this in any way that I'm speaking ill of the military. I'm speaking ill of our health system. I'm speaking ill of the food that we're force-fed, and apparently the food our military is force-fed. I mean, bless their hearts when they're over in arenas of battle and stuff, and they're having to eat MREs and stuff. You don't have choice in what you can eat, and then they don't really get a lot of choice when they're back getting cooked food and stuff as well. Would be my guess, but nevertheless, this is just shocking because sugar's just taking over. It's just taking over. This is a study that just finished with 18,000 randomly selected people from all services, all branches of the service. Right at 66% of service members are either overweight or obese. Almost 66%, 2/3 of service members in all branches of the military are overweight or obese. This, of course, correlates with what we're seeing in the general population. The last statistics we have, solid statistics, are 2015, which is a couple of years ago. 1 in 3 kids, or young adults, not kids, but teenagers, which are coming up to the enlistment age, 1 in 3, 33%, are too fat to enlist. Even if they wanted to serve the country, they're too fat. How crazy is that? So, if you break it down by service, the Army had the highest percentage of overweight troops, with 69% of soldiers falling in the overweight or obese category. Coast Guard was next at 67.8. Navy was next at 64.6. Air Force next at 63.1. And Marines 60.9. So about 61% for Marines. That's on the low end. Either overweight or obese. There's a couple of things they attribute to it. Obviously, number one is the food. The other is lack of sleep. Now, I can testify to this. If you're not sleeping right, you're messing. You're having cortisol issues. You're messing up with your ghrelin. There's all kind of things get messed up when you don't sleep right. And, of course, when you're military, it's very difficult to sleep right. And that's something that's probably never going to change. I mean, it just isn't going to change. That just comes and goes with being in the military. But in addition to the sleeping patterns, obviously, you're seeing issues with food. Obviously, the vast majority of what happens to us as far as weight is concerned is with food. And so that's one of those things you can't outrun. Even being in the military, arguably what should be the most fit segment of the population, overweight or obese. Now, I'll say this. When you hit that overweight category, you're using a BMI chart, which I assume is what they use. There's a lot of people that hit that overweight mark on the BMI chart that aren't overweight, because that chart is not the most accurate thing ever. So I don't know what percentage we can knock off of that, instead of saying it's 66%, we could probably knock 10% out of there and make it 50. Let's say 55%. Let's say the bottom 10% of those are really not overweight. They're just technically overweight on the BMI chart. I can't tell you how many people I've met that, according to the BMI chart, they're overweight, and these people are not overweight. So you've got to get on up a ways before you actually hit overweight. For some people. I've also seen, I can't say a lot of people. I know of one person for sure that I know who on the BMI chart was showed as not being overweight, and they definitely were overweight. So everybody's body's different. You just can't have a chart like that. Nevertheless, why do I share that? Well, it's not to bash the military, certainly. It's to bash the food supply. It's to bash the food supply. The men and women who arguably need the best nutrition and shouldn't have to be dealing with this are getting the worst. And I'm sure that crap that they, what kind of stuff can you heat up in a pack? When you're out in a battlefield somewhere, or you're out on a mission or something, it's something that's packaged. It's the same stuff that basically that we're getting fed when you buy stuff on the inner aisles of the stores. It's stuff that don't go bad, because all the good stuff in it that could go bad they've taken out, and you're just left with all the crap. That's all that's left, which is mostly carbs. It's just going to be mostly carbohydrates, because they're very shelf stable the way they make them, and they'll last forever. And those MREs will last a long time. There's this YouTube channel that I follow and watch sometimes. It's this woman, and she samples MREs that she gets, and I've seen her eat MREs that are 10 years old. Rhett and Link is another show I like. I saw them eating MREs one time, really old ones. They were like, 12, 13-year-old MREs. They last forever because carbs, the way they process them, will last forever. There's not a freshness factor. And so I would say that this is probably the way it works. Is when these members of the military are actually out in those strenuous situations where they are, probably burning through carbohydrate like crazy because of the situation they're in. MREs probably are not contributing that much to obesity because they're burning up glycogen stores, and it's not a real issue with the insulin levels, etc. But when they're not in those situations and they're in relatively normal energy expenditure situations and they're eating these high carb foods, well, it's going to affect them the same way it affects me and affects you. So it's a sad day. It's just a sad day, and I don't know what's the answer is something that probably will never happen, and that's getting the government to reverse their decision to call sugar, which is a highly concentrated drug. That's all it is. Sugar is not food. Sugar is not food. It's a highly concentrated drug. processed from a plant. Same way cocaine is processed from a plant in a highly concentrated way. It's a drug. It's not food. It shouldn't be put in food. It shouldn't be legal to be used as food. And so I don't know how we change that. Because you say, well, what do we do to fix it? We could just fix it. We could fix the nation if they would make sugar illegal. If they made sugar where it couldn't be put in food. What would that leave us? We'd be back to eating real foods again. Because all these products that are all carbs that line all those central aisles of the store that are shelf stable and will last forever, it's all carbs. It's this highly processed wheat, which isn't a drug but is borderline. They process the hell out of that wheat to where it's unrecognizable. And then they stuff it full of sugar. And so it's just sugar carbs. Wheat is carbs, and you add sugar to it, which is more sugar carbs, and it's just a box of carbs. And I'll end the podcast with this. If you've never done this experiment, you just need to know basic math, right? You just need to know basic math. Grab you a box of whatever cereal you want. Go find the healthiest cereal from the cereal aisle, the one that you think is the healthiest. And you go get it, and you see what a serving size is. So it'll say a serving size of whatever, Special K. You go find the one you think is the healthiest. Go walk down the aisle and go, oh, this is healthy here. This has to be healthy. It's not crap like Fruit Loops. Turn it to the nutrition label and see what a serving size is. And it'll be whatever, 57 grams. I'm just going to say 57 grams for the sake of argument. So serving size is 57 grams. And then I want you to make your way down the box till you get to the carbohydrate line, and I want you to see how many grams are carbohydrates, and that's sugar. Carbs are sugar, sugar are carbs. There is no difference. And you're going to be surprised because the number is going to be like, if the serving size is 57, the carbs are going to be something like 45 or 42 or 48 or something. So now here's all you got to do. You take that 42 number, whatever the carb number is, and divide it by the total serving size number. And the number that's left, if you move the decimal place 2 points to the right, that'll give you the percentage of that food that is sugar. So, for instance, if it says 0.89 something, 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 move it 2 places to the right, that'll give you 89. It's 89% sugar. 89% of whatever in that cereal box is sugar. It's literally... I figured it up one time. I believe it's Frosted Flakes is like 92% sugar or something. I mean, you might as well, if you're feeding this to your kids, God forbid you're feeding it to yourself, but worse, look what you're doing to your kids. You're giving them fatty liver disease by the time they're 10. Yes, they're finding kids now, 10 years old, having a disease that back in the day only alcoholics got. Now kids 10 years old are getting it. They just eat sugar all the damn time, and it does the same thing in the liver that alcohol does. Overloads it, you wind up with fatty liver disease. Oh, God, it's so frustrating to me. It pisses me off, but forgive me for getting riled up. You might as well just give your kids a bowl of sugar and a spoon every morning for breakfast. Go, oh, here, kids, let me pour some sugar in this bowl for you. Well, forgo the milk. Don't even get started on milk. People think milk is healthy. Milk is loaded with sugar. I believe 8 ounces of milk is like 12 grams of sugar. An insane amount of sugar. That's 3 teaspoons, by the way, I believe. It's an insane amount of sugar. And then you pour it on top of your sugar, which is your cereal, and you got liquid sugar on top of your dry, crunchy sugar. It's a big sugar fest. I think you wonder why the kids are all wound up and why they can't control it. Parents are sending their kids off to school hyped up on a drug that should be illegal. And so the teachers can't control them. And then once they finally ever do come down from that sugar high, when they finally ever, because kids have a really high metabolism, once they ever do finally burn all that sugar off, then the sugar crash happens and the kids become irritable and jerks and unruly. And so then the teachers got to try to deal with that until they can finally get out to the lunch where the lunch service at the school pumps the kids back up with carbohydrates again, floods their body with sugar, and sends them off back to class where the God help the teacher who tries to deal with them for the next hour and a half while they burn through all that sugar they just ate like cocaine. And then you got the sugar crash again, which takes them to the time the final bell rings. And so God help our teachers. They're having to deal with that every day. It's unbelievable. But I digress. If you appreciate anything we to do, look, it's a free podcast. You'll never have to pay for it. But if anything I've ever said helped you lose weight, you lost 20 pounds, you lost 15 pounds, you lost 30 pounds, you reversed your type 2 diabetes, I'd love for you to support and help me do that for other people. Go over to ketoanimal.com and become a patron. That would be just awesome. And share this podcast on your social media pages. You'll change somebody's life. And if you're not already following us on social media, do that as well. Fat Guy Podcast. And don't forget, check out our new daily driver podcast where I go day by day what I'm doing in my weight loss journey. It's my weight loss in real time. That's called Real Life Keto. And you can find Real Life Keto it's on Spotify now. It's on Apple Podcast, obviously. It's on Anchor.fm. It's basically anywhere you can get podcasts. And it's being added to new platforms all the time. Real Life Keto. Links to all that, of course, is on the social media if you have problems finding it. Thanks so much for listening today. I appreciate it.